Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you all again. Lovely to see you again, Babula.
Hey, Sheryl.
Yeah, hope everyone had a great Christmas. At least spent some time out. That's a really important thing after these last couple of years, which have been quite draining, actually. In fact, there's no doubt the last 2 years have been a real slog with the, Saturn and Pluto conjuncting in Capricorn in 2020 and Saturn Uranus square in 2021, really heavy and challenging aspects. But 2022 is shaping up to be of a different feel, I think, which we'll go into with the two major aspects for 2022, with Jupiter conjunct Neptune in Pisces and North Node conjunct Uranus in Taurus. And I'm no great astrology expert. I read that on the internet, I have to tell you, being transparent, but I also feel it too. So Babula, let's read the cosmic tea leaves. Let's get some spiritual encouragement. Let's dig deep for some meaning around what's around the corner in 2022 to kick off the year.
Yes, fantastic. So, of course, the first up, the numerologist, and I'm not one, my understanding of numbers is pretty fundamental. There's all the twos in 2022, and you may be able to illuminate us a bit more about that. But a simple understanding I have is that two is often about, relationship, one person and the other person. And I think that's going to be an important theme. Also, the fact that Venus is currently retrograde. So, moving into 2022, Venus, the planet of love and relationships, is in a retrograde phase with Pluto. So there is a relationship theme there, straight up. So I think that'll be an important theme in the year ahead.
Yeah, so there's some interesting astrology for January. So
yes.
why don't we start off with that and the new moon in Capricorn, etc., etc.
Yeah, so there's actually a lot to say about January. I was saying the same thing in October, November, December. They were three pretty hefty months astrologically. So in January, first up, I want to bring attention to something most of you probably know by now. Jupiter has just moved into Pisces. And because in 21, Jupiter spent a couple of months in Pisces, he's not going to spend the entire year in Pisces in 2022. The first 4 months to around about the 11th of May, it's in Pisces. So he whizzes through the sign of Pisces really fast, then goes into Aries, and then slips back in a retrograde phase into Pisces in November and December. So we have this kind of 6 months of the year divided into two sections of Jupiter. And why that's so important and mostly helpful.
Mostly, she says.
Yes, because, Jupiter, we consider Jupiter to be primarily of a beneficial influence. In fact, the traditional astrologers called it the greater benefic. Venus, the lesser benefic. These two planets, which are the brightest stars in our sky, Venus and Jupiter, Venus super bright because she's so close to Earth, and Jupiter just because he's so enormous, tend to be the most kind of beneficial, good feeling planets in our system, the least challenging and the least troublesome. So why it's very nice that Jupiter's going into Pisces, or has just gone into Pisces, is that Jupiter loves being in Pisces. He's the traditional ruler of Sagittarius and Pisces. Neptune was discovered in 1846 and took over the rulership of Pisces, but Jupiter continues to have a very strong connection with this sign and is very happy to be in Pisces because Jupiter is big expanded energies. Sagittarian people and Pisceans, they share in common this Jupiter energy of almost boundary-less. Pisces is very boundary-less. And Jupiter is always big, expand, more. So it's a very comfortable place for Jupiter. And as a benefic, Jupiter has a reputation for bringing opportunities, good luck, like just plain simple old-fashioned good luck. Yes, go and buy a lottery ticket, especially if Jupiter's activating something fabulous in your chart, like by all means, those kinds of things. Opportunities for growth and expansion in wherever Pisces is in your birth chart, whatever house it's in, that part of your life is going to be under the influence, so to speak, of this Jupiterian, positive, uplifting, inspiring, hopeful, expansive influence. Spiritually, a wonderful transit Jupiter in Pisces. People I've met and clients and so on have got Jupiter in Pisces in their birth chart. They just have this natural, innate sense of connection to the divine, to the mystery, to spirit, to God, whatever is the language we use.
With Jupiter, it sort of governs philosophy and religion as well, doesn't it? And
that's right.
The quest for truth, from which meaning is derived. So, and then you put that together with Pisces, which is the mystical,
Yes.
dreamy, intuitive thing, energies, and you've got a real sort of, a striving for a connection, a connection with things that are higher in the world, and like hopeful dreams as well, those sorts of things.
Exactly. And it's an interesting thing to look at, okay, so Jupiter is a traditional ruler of two signs, Sagittarius and Pisces. And in Sag, its influence is philosophical, that quest for truth and meaning, as you're saying, very much. And the quest for higher knowledge and understanding through philosophical systems, religion, travel experiences, expanding our horizons. We grow, we feel alive and enthusiastic about life. That's Jupiter with Sag. In Pisces, Pisces is also a quest for spiritual understanding, but it's not so much on the philosophical mental level. It's fully experiential. It has to be felt, intuitive experience. It can be those experiences of being moved by a beautiful sunset, like even moved to tears and having a transcendent experience, or seeing a movie that just opens us up, or sitting in a huge meditation hall with a spiritual teacher, and the energy just keeps opening, and you're having transcendent experiences of something ecstatic, possibly. So it's that. It's like that's what's on offer. There's an invitation for us to open to these other dimensions, and it's a felt, intuitive experience that is beyond the intellect, actually.
And just on another tangent, though, Jupiter also governs morality and ethics. And I was previously listening to a professor of ethics who was saying, in this cancel culture or culture of science, where that the culture of science is now regarded by many as higher than the culture of freedom of speech. Where does our society go? What does it mean for our society? So I was thinking about, Jupiter and Pisces sort of digging around, sort of looking for meaning in their values and social values and beliefs and ideals and goals of the society that they live in.
That's right. And as you say that, I see, we touched earlier on Jupiter is fundamentally a positive influence, but everything has a shadow. And so if Jupiter has a shadow, it can sometimes be around extreme excess, too much of something, like just too much. So that could bring in a sense of feeling completely overwhelmed by the sense of a loss of control, like our world seems to be out of control, which is a very Pisces thing. Like one of the challenging qualities of Pisces is chaos. there's just a complete loss of any kind of system or order or rational thinking. It can be just absolute chaos. And I think people are feeling that. And while Jupiter's in Pisces, that can be one of the downsides. Like, it's just so overwhelming. And that issue of censorship and all the other things that are going on can make people feel like they have absolutely no control whatsoever.
And I think too, it can be become quite impractical.
Yeah.
I know people have dreams about doing certain things. I'm thinking of an example, someone who might want to give up their paid job and go and talk about something that doesn't pay very well, put it that way.
Right. Art or something like that.
It's a dreamy sort of, it's a dream, but then you've got to look at the practicalities of it. Will it work? And again, that's bringing that heaven to earth. Have a dream and have your head in the clouds and think about all those things, but what actually works? And I guess that leads us into that Capricorn energy, which we're about to come to as well.
That's right, because as you were speaking, I was remembering that actually Saturn, which rules Capricorn, is sort of the counterbalance to Jupiter. We can see Saturn and Jupiter as a pair of opposites. Saturn being the principle of contraction, where energies are condensed and focused in a very pragmatic way, rules Capricorn. And Jupiter just wants to expand, and even in the zodiac, Sagittarius, a Jupiter ruled sign, sits right next to Capricorn, a Saturn ruled sign. So there's this real sort of counterbalance story going on there. And that's right. Jupiter in Pisces is an invitation to dream big.
Yeah.
Are we able to give it legs in the real world as well?
Exactly.
But the dreaming is important.
Yes.
If you can't imagine it and consider it even possible, it's not going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
So really, Jupiter and Pisces, if we're open, can open us up to other dimensions spiritually that can be extremely beneficial. And I think during these really challenging times, it's really helpful and important, critical even, to have some kind of spiritual framework to hold all of this in. And it can, the more expansive that is, I think the more helpful that is, as long as we're also facing up to the realities of
and I think we all need some inspiration too, because it's been sort of, there's no light at the end of the tunnel situation, in a lot of people's thinking, regardless of what it's about. Everyone's facing their own dilemma in a different way through these last 2 years. And feeling, a lot of people I spoke to over Christmas was this like, oh, when is it going to end? This goes on and on and on and on and on. And people can only take so much. And I had a real sense of their spirit being broken, basically. And I think we really are in need of this energy to inspire people, to prop them up, really.
To uplift and because really at its best or highest, you could say, expression of Pisces, and especially Jupiter here, is a deep sense of faith and trust that no matter what happens, when there is a strong spiritual understanding and connection to the mystery of life, no matter what happens, ultimately everything's okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a big thing. That's a big, important thing for each soul, to arrive at that kind of understanding that no matter what happens, and yes, this is exhausting and draining and stressful and difficult for so many, that more expanded. And I do feel that this is a big part of what this whole process is about. It's actually about us evolving and growing spiritually, ultimately. In this human domain.
We're all sort of saying, why are we going through all this? Why? For those people who have an understanding of reincarnation and say, why did I come here at this time? What's the meaning for me to be here?
We all signed up. That's right.
Exactly. So we're looking for that faith and that optimism
That's
come back
right.
into our lives. Yeah.
And even those days when it just all falls away and we might feel despair or exhausted or depressed or like, oh God, I've had enough.
Mm.
That's okay. That's important to allow that, and then that can actually help us, I think, to open up to, you know what? It's okay. I'm going to now do this, this, or this because I'm feeling a new level of inspiration. So anybody with planets in Pisces is going to be receiving this wonderful, like, injection of good juju, from Jupiter during these next 4 to 5 months. So,
oh, that's interesting. I've got it in my 3rd house, so we'll see how that goes.
yeah. Well, that's going to keep you busy, with communications and classes and courses and workshops and so on.
Mm.
Nice. Yeah. And people and connections and
Yeah.
And in your spiritual work. So yeah, fantastic. So new moon in Capricorn, huh?
Yes. Lay it on us.
Late on. So it's interesting that we get a brand new moon on the 2nd of January, like right at the start of the year, because the sun's always in Capricorn, of course, at this time of year. But this time we get the moon joining with the sun on the 2nd, and Brisbane time around 6:30 p.m. So it's exact in the evening. That'll be an hour later for New South Wales, Victoria, and a couple of hours earlier in WA, of course. So it's at 12 degrees of Capricorn. So this is the Capricorn new moon. You can see I've got a lovely Capricorn goat. And it's such an interesting sign. On the one hand, Capricorn is like the ultimately pragmatic sign, pragmatic, foundational, organized, determined to climb the mountain, whatever the mountain is, whether it's a spiritual mountain you're climbing, a business mountain, or whatever it is, whatever the goals are. Capricorn is always laying strong foundations and steps. That mountain goat climbing the mountain. I like this image of the goat behind me because it's more Capricorn on a more mystical sort of level, and you can't see it all, but it's got the fish's tail, which is the true original symbol of Capricorn. It's the goat, but he has a fish's tail, which is interesting. It's almost like a Piscean image.
Yeah.
There's this whole mystical energy around, and over the years, I did a lot of research on the charts of, the great souls historically and currently, the great gurus and teachers and mystical souls, awakened souls. Almost invariably, there is strong Capricorn in their charts. And it speaks to, I think, having gone through many lifetimes of the trials and tribulations and struggles, which is what Capricorn's about, and those struggles of initiation into another level and another level, lifetime after lifetime, doing the hard yards on a human level and absolutely on a spiritual level, and then coming to a level of self-mastery, which is ultimately what Capricorn's about, really. So there's the worldly level, absolutely, very real. And spiritually, there's this whole sense of initiation into another level of mastery.
Well, it's actually interesting that you say the word initiation, because I know when people who go through those experiences, and I have myself, it brings you down to what's really important.
Yes.
Because everything else falls away, whether it's because you've got an illness or you've lost a loved one or you've had a divorce, you've become redundant in a job you've been in for 20 years, all those sorts of things.
The business has gone bankrupt, whatever.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So, and that can affect different people in so many different ways, at different levels of trauma and etc. So, but it brings you back to the really important things in life, doesn't it? And so there's that and Capricorn I find the energy is quite black and white and simple and basic, and not that people are basic, but
yes,
it's like, what is it at the heart of things that is really important, and let the rest fall away.
Exactly. In the northern hemisphere, Capricorn is the dead of winter. It's the winter solstice. And I think a wonderful image of what you're describing is, you know, in some parts of the world when it's freezing cold, you know, you look at a tree, it has not a single leaf on it, and the tree looks dead. It's bare. It's been stripped down to its just branches is all you can see. We use the term the bare bones, and in medical astrology, of course, Capricorn governs our bones. So it's right down to the bones, and everything else does is it looks like it might be dead.
Yes.
And there's all you're left with is a bare skeleton. Like, consider when a body dies, centuries later, you can dig that up and the bones are still there.
Yeah.
You know? And in that's right. And in winter, the tree looks dead, but spring comes and it just takes on new life again. So that's just what you were saying. You know, things do get stripped back to the bare bones, and we're left with what's essential and what's real and what's most important.
And in shamanism, I've probably said this before, it's about the shaman having those initiation experiences, everything being stripped away, so they become what the shamans call the hollow bone.
Wow.
That's just it, the hollow bone. So there's
wow.
So they don't have any, you know, everything's stripped away, and they have to reinvent themselves.
Yes.
From the bare bones.
Like rebuilding, which is a
Yes.
Capricorn term, isn't it?
Yeah, and post initiation, you develop a new identity.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at the same, so it's new, but at the same time, there's been this meeting and encounter with yourself at a very core, basic, fundamental level, which
Absolutely.
And that's where inner authority comes from, which is a Capricorn word, authority. So are we looking externally to authority figures to tell us what to do? Or have we gone through all these different initiations through our life? And all humans do, whether they're conscious of it or not. You know, their child dies,
Yes.
happens. These are initiations.
Yes, big ones.
They change us, and we learn really difficult, powerful things about ourselves, don't we?
We certainly do. Yes. Yeah.
Capricorn's a tough energy. It's not.
Yeah, it's hard.
Not an easy one. It's hard, you know, it's hard going, but it's always, and that's why, you know, what happened in January 2020, of course, with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn at 22, it was like, okay, people, humanity, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. And this is not going to be easy.
Yes. I was going to say, the Capricorn energy was, let's strip away everything, including your freedom, lock you up in your homes. That's it. You know, that's all you're getting.
And see who you are.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and what you're about, and what's most important to you. You know, what are our deepest values? And that's right. Talk about a collective initiation. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
The whole of humanity.
Yeah.
So this new moon at 12 of Cap has a trine to Uranus at around the same degrees of Taurus. I think Uranus is around 10 or 11, so it's a very close trine. So that Uranus energy is bringing in, and I like that for the start of the year that we have the new moon trine Uranus. It just brings in a sense of new possibilities, of things opening and changing.
Breaking bones, I'm getting.
Yes, well, absolutely. You know, when Uranus has got anything to do with Saturn and Capricorn, that absolutely can be a real manifestation of that.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking, okay, so you've been through this initiation, you're down to the bare bones. This is who you think you are. Oh, snap, you're not even that. You know, that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's more.
Yes.
That's right. Now try this one on.
Yes. Yeah.
That's right. So we can laugh at it, but when it's happening, oh no, you know, how will I get through this? Will I survive this? And then we discover that, well, actually, I did survive that. You know, I'm made of more than I realized.
Yes. Yeah, that's the eye opener, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And that we can actually do more than we really think we can.
Yeah. And I found
endure more than we think we can.
I found myself thinking that often in the last few months. I'm thinking, well, got through 2020 and 2021, wasn't happy about it, don't like where we are at the moment, and don't like what's happened to society. But this is where we're at, and we'll handle it as, I'll handle it as best as I can from here on in. Yeah, so we'll just see where it goes.
That's right.
Ask me again next year.
That's right. Exactly. So I think, if we bring it back to just the basics of new moons, every 4 weeks there's a new moon. This one is in Capricorn to start the year off. And that's, the beginning of a new lunar cycle. And it's in Capricorn. So this is a great time to be thinking ahead, making plans, putting things in place, getting yourself organized. If you have a home office, if you run your own business, get yourself organized and be thinking about the year ahead. I mean, that's what people tend to do anyway, isn't it? At New Year, New Year's resolutions. But Capricorn says, yeah, but let's get real about it, not some fanciful notion that you've been trying to do for years and never do.
Yeah, exactly.
Like actually get real and what things are we having to come to terms with, with our real practical sides of life, Yeah.
I'm just thinking in the spiritual movement, spiritual community, there are, people often have lofty ideals, but, it's about getting real with it.
That's right.
And then applying it.
That's right.
And you don't have to be a Louise Hay or a Gandhi or a Buddha, but just following some things that appeal to you, even just one, and actually applying it, because a lot of it goes around in the head, but actually making it real in your life.
That's right. And, that's what Capricorns do. If you watch Capricorn children, they're already thinking ahead. They're making plans. They're, it can be the kid who just starts, I'm showing my age now, a paper run, but like is looking for, I'll clean the car for you, Mum, if you give me $5, because they're already thinking about, okay, if I do this, then I'll get that, and then I can do that.
Yeah.
Or they're thinking about what they want to be when they're older, going through the early years of childhood and then into teenage years. They're already thinking about their career or their business plans, or they're already starting a business in their teenage years. Those young kids who do that, they're usually Capricorns. Or they've got a lot of Capricorn.
Yeah.
So it is. It's looking at goals and in very realistic terms and putting the steps in place to make it happen instead of just thinking about it. So so that's, I think, a great very basic but important aspect of this new moon. Right, make use of that energy and that opportunity to start to do that, getting real about your plans. Okay. On the same day, on the 2nd, Mercury, communicator, actually leaves Capricorn and goes into Aquarius around the same time as the new moon, like later in the day, in the late afternoon. So Mercury in Aquarius, Mercury loves Aquarius. Aquarius is an air sign, the mind, people, communications. Mercury goes into Aquarius and it's like he just gets switched on.
Yes.
Someone turns up the dial, he's plugged in, he's switched on. So our minds will be active, really kind of, the mind opens up to all sorts of possibilities.
When was that? The 4th?
No, on the 2nd, same day as the new moon, around about the same time, even like new moon's at 6:30 p.m. Mercury goes into Aquarius at 5 p.m. the same day.
Oh, cool.
Queensland time. So so that's quite a shift. And we'll feel it, like mentally we're going to feel, if we're paying attention, you notice there's a change. Even just like our thinking changes. Yeah,
good. I like that. That's
that's right.
I need that. I need it.
Right. That will switch things on.
Yes.
For you, Sheryl.
Yes, I'm a bit tired of bumbling around in the dark for the last couple of weeks.
I think that Capricorn new moon and the shift of Mercury will really, the lights go on.
Yeah, and I think it's just the end of the year energy anyway, because we all do succumb to the collective energy, don't we? So
absolutely. And we're having this conversation on the last day of the year. We always do it a few days ahead of the newer full moon, so we've got time to get it out to people. But So we're actually doing this on the last day of the year. And at the end of any cycle, there is always that sense of, oh God,
Yes.
just
True.
feeling like, because it's closing, it's ending, it's falling away.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I've seen a lot of memes on Facebook along the lines of, I don't normally, but this year I'm staying up to midnight to make sure the old year departs. Like I'm over it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Goodbye 2021 and close the door on your way out. Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So then there's not a great deal happening astrologically for a week. So we get that new moon and Mercury into Aquarius. Then something very important and significant takes place on the 9th. Now, and it's all to do with Venus.
Ah.
So Venus, the goddess, is retrograde currently in the sign of Capricorn. She turned retrograde with a conjunction to Pluto. So this entire Venus retrograde has not only Capricorn themes, but Plutonic energy, deep transformation. And I have certainly felt it, like it's lots shifted on its axis in my personal universe. And I have felt quite an intensity on a personal level. Like there's been days when it's just felt so intense. And that's very Plutonic. And of course, Venus is our relationships. It can be with friends, with partners, lovers, sisters, daughters, women. It's that female energy. But on the 9th, Venus retrograde meets up with the sun, or we could actually say the sun meets up with Venus. So if I just demonstrate, like Venus she was moving forward through Capricorn, then she turned and went retrograde. Meanwhile, the sun's coming in behind. She's going retrograde or backwards, and they meet. And they meet on the 9th at 18 degrees of Capricorn. Now, why that's important is because every 20 months when Venus goes retrograde, she's going to make a conjunction to the sun. And that marks what we call the Venus star point. On the pentagram, on the 5-pointed star, the Venusian 5-pointed star. So it's an 8-year cycle with 5 points, and they're all to do with the Venus conjunct the sun meetings. And they're really important. It's such an interesting story, this whole Venus retrograde thing. And in mythology, of course, Venus, Inanna, the goddess, it was said during this period when she met with the sun and literally disappears from the night sky for about 10 nights. You go, where's Venus gone? We've been watching her in the western sky after sunset as the evening star, and she literally disappears for 10 nights. And you go, what happened to Venus? She's gone, because she's been getting closer to the sun. And so she's like, Inanna, the goddess, is in the underworld. When she reappears again, around 10 days later, she's going to come up in the morning ahead of the sun. So it's like the sun and Venus cross positions. They change positions relative to each other. And then for the next 10 months, she will be the morning star. So for the last 10 months, she's been the evening star. So she's going to be, and they have a slightly different energy and quality, the morning and evening star. So that's quite an important thing that's happening on the 9th. On the 11th, some of you might remember that over the last, since we've been doing these, I don't know, 18 months, nearly 2 years, something?
2 years in January, I think.
Wow. And here we are, we're still going.
We're still going, and there's so much more to talk about.
Always.
Yeah.
Right. So from time to time, I think I've mentioned Eris, not technically a planet. She's often referred to now as a dwarf planet way out beyond Pluto. She's been the last 2 years forming these very strong squares with Pluto. And she's in Aries, square Pluto and Capricorn. That square starts to slowly separate in 2022. So that's been very much part of the intensity that we've been experiencing. She'll be stationary on the 11th, so her presence will be felt. And she's quite one astrologer that I enjoy calls her, sort of describes her as having almost street fighter energy, especially in Aries. She's quite the rebel, and she's referred to as the goddess of strife. But the strife she causes is like a vehicle to reveal secrets. You know, she's like a whistleblower. She exposes secrets, and yes, she causes a lot of trouble, but it's the only way these secrets and manipulations can be exposed.
A whistleblower.
He cracks things open.
We need that.
You bet. There's a lot going on. There is a lot going on behind the scenes. And
yes.
I think we're going to see one of the main themes of 2022 is going to be a lot more revelation and exposure.
Yeah, it's already started.
It's already started. It's going to just accelerate and accelerate and accelerate. Yeah. It's part of the big Awakening. So then on the...
So Ceres is doing what?
She will be stationary.
Stationary.
Yeah, so at 23 degrees. So she's at a standstill around that whole week. We could even say pretty much most of January, because she moves so slowly.
Yes.
Pretty much in January. So her presence is there as this sort of agent of revelation. And I mean, her traditional sort of titles, if you like, in mythology, in Greek mythology, is she is the goddess of discord, strife, and chaos. You know, so that's a big energy. So she's a real disruptor.
Yes.
She is not putting up with the status quo if she sees that there's things going on there. That's not. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
I think that's important. And she's still quite closely square to Pluto. And in fact, when she's stationary, she's actually square Venus, the Sun, and Pluto, all in Capricorn. So yeah, so her presence is quite strong. So, you know, watch this space.
Yeah. The
following day, Mars, which is currently in Sagittarius.
On the 12th, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, like I always track Mars. I find Mars interesting. And so when he's in Sagittarius, he's in my 4th house. So, you know, I've moved house. It's been huge. My whole personal domestic life has completely changed from what it was. You know, Mars is going through my 4th. So there's been a lot of energy there. It's been very dynamic. But on the 12th, Mars in Sag will make a square to Neptune.
Okay.
Mars at 20 of Sagittarius, square Neptune at 20 of Pisces. So around those few days, you know, Mars is such a dynamic energy, planet of action. When it squares Neptune, we can feel a bit like disoriented, tired, a bit confused, trying to take action. But things, it's like, I think Mars has to respond to what's happening rather than trying to force things to happen or make things happen. It's more of, you know, going with that intuition, the flow, you know, responding to what's happening over those few days and taking action from that place rather than, you know, our own personal agenda of what we think has to happen.
Yeah. So it acts upon or reacts. Does it react?
Yes. And it's intuitive and And it might be that, well, I plan to do this today, but now it looks like I'm doing that.
Yes.
You know, because that's what's showing up, or something suddenly changed and I have to put those plans aside. So over those few days, it might feel a bit confusing for people, a bit disorienting. Now, and also whenever Neptune's triggered like that, it can also get a bit emotional. People can feel, and with Mars, it might be like anger arising too, you know, frustration and anger. You know, sometimes we get angry. There's also tears and there's upsets going on. Because I now live with my little grandchildren. It's been, you know, I see it, you know, you see that in full display with little children. They're so in the moment. If they're upset, like it's just all on. You know, there's no censoring or self-control. So you see everything just in the raw.
Well, sometimes it's good to let go.
It absolutely is. And so that's right. So there can be a big tantrum or tears, or somebody's upset or somebody's angry, and then it's all over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm kind of thinking might be a couple of days where that'll be going on in our world. On the 14th, something important happens. Mercury turns retrograde. And you think, oh, not again already. It seemed like only a few weeks ago it was retrograde.
Oh, time ticks on.
Time ticks on. So, of course, our good friend Mercury, Hermes, the messenger, communication, words, information,
media,
messages, announcements, people standing up in front of the microphone yet again on a daily basis with the next announcement, the next update, blah, 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 as we know, will be in Aquarius from the new moon date on the 2nd, turns retrograde at 10 degrees of Aquarius and will be retrograde for 3 weeks. He will actually move backwards through Aquarius from 10 to 0 and then go back into Capricorn for a while. So he's going to be retrograde for 3 weeks. On the date that he turns retrograde on the 14th, he's going to make an exact square to Uranus. So that could shake things up a bit. Things could get a little crazy on that day and around that couple of days. Things, again, plans could be upset. Uranus is a disruptive energy. I would also say to people, just take it a bit easy out on the roads. Things can get a little bit crazy. Mercury's got quite a lot to do with just traffic and mobility and commuting and buzzing around from here to there. Things can get a little bit hectic. We might see, I would say, on that date and around those days, quite a lot of seismic, earthquake, volcanic activity going on around the planet. Yep, that's quite a classic sort of thing. And it's an exact square on the day that he turns retrograde. So that Uranus energy will actually be a theme of the whole 3 weeks of Mercury retrograde, just like Pluto is a theme of this Venus retrograde. Can be fantastic, though. Mercury in Aquarius square, Aquarius's planet Uranus, can be fantastic for things like astrology and esoteric knowledge and groups getting together and igniting inspiration and so on. It can be very, very helpful for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Put that in my diary.
Yeah. I mean, I remember years ago I went to a fantastic astrology workshop in Melbourne. They've happened in Australia every 2 years, and this was, I think, back in the 90s. And I remember Mercury was retrograde at the time, and people thinking, oh, that's a terrible time to schedule an astrology conference. It's one of the best conferences I've ever been to. It was amazing. The organizers behind the scenes are probably having all kinds of glitches, but the quality of the work and the presenters and the workshops and the lectures was fantastic. Mercury retrograde can be really, really good for deep mental work, very, very, very good.
Yeah. By the way, is those astrology conferences still happening?
Not
online?
No, there's lots of conferences going on around the world online. Lots of them. Lots of the astrology groups, of which there are many now, like astrology's exploded. They're meeting online.
Well, it's the time for it, isn't it?
That's right. And on the other side of this, we will get back to the in-person ones because they're fantastic. You get to make new friends, you meet the family, and everyone gets to hang out, and they're great. We will get back to that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. And
so that's that will be quite a busy few days there. And that brings us to the 18th, which is the full moon, which will be the peak of this current cycle beginning at the new moon on the 2nd.
Okay.
And that full moon will be at 27 degrees of Cancer, of course, opposite the sun at 27 degrees of Capricorn, which just happens to be conjunct Pluto at 26. So that full moon on the 18th is a plutonic full moon.
That sounds like a doozy.
It'll be a doozy. So this is in the Capricorn moon cycle, lunar cycle, starting on the 2nd. The peak of it will very much involve Pluto. So watch this space. 27 of Cancer, it just happens to be the exact degree of my own personal moon.
Ooh.
And through 22, I'm having Pluto opposing my moon pretty much all year. So that full moon is really going to be like the first major trigger of my own moon. So, if this is how things work, and knowing that that's coming for me, I'm aware of that. And so I have an understanding, not of exactly what's going to happen, but I have an understanding of the energies and the process that this will be about.
Yes. That's what I get out of astrology is the understanding, because you know that when there is a series of things happening, you know that, well, there's a beginning and a middle and an end to it. And right. I always like the end.
Yeah, this is your past.
Yeah. But it's a challenging time, and that is like the light at the end of the tunnel in its own way. Right. Yeah.
And it gives you really good insight into what it's about for you, what that process is about. And knowing that on the other side of it, with a Pluto transit like that, and I'll probably keep you up to date as we go through the year. Yes. On the other side of it, but into the following year, a lot of deep personal transformation will have happened for me.
Yeah.
And that's the great benefit that will come out of, quite a deep, at times challenging process. It's all part, it's another level of initiation, like we were saying before.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
And evolution, which is why we're all here in the first place.
Well, I think people don't typically choose to grow. People go to workshops, and there's some workshop junkies out there, but I often see that they don't apply what they're learning, yes, including myself, because I'm a human being too, don't always apply these things. But when you have these really challenging times, you're forced to either sink or swim, aren't you? You either grow or you don't. And when you don't, a lot of terrible things can happen, often manifesting an illness, by the way.
That's right. And particularly with with any of the big powerful transits of those outer planets, we are changed. We can try to go back to what we were, but we actually have been changed, and our situation has changed. Think how much we've all changed in 2 years. Think how much so many aspects of our life has changed these last 2 years.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and that's even like things, as we say many times, things won't go back to the way they were. There will be some return to a sense of, it will be different, but we will get our freedoms back. Things will change, and we will be able to move around this beautiful planet once again, and all these awful mandates and so on will be lifted. It will change, but in the meantime, we have changed. We have we've all confronted often really difficult stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then just to round off, straight after the full moon, which we'll talk about a lot more next time, on the 19th, Uranus is stationary and the North Node goes into Taurus, both events happening on the 19th, the day after the full moon. So there's a lot to say there, which we'll get to next time.
Which will be one of the themes we'll be dealing with this year, won't it?
Yes, the North Node in Taurus is a really important piece.
Yes. Yeah. Well, anyway, I look forward to that. I just wanted to point out to people, over the Christmas holidays, I bought myself a gift, and I bought the medical astrology book by Jane Ritter-Patrick. It's really good, actually. So I've only just sort of about a third of the way in, but anyone looking for any information about that, I'd recommend that. Not that I'm an astrologer who'd know, but it's good for someone who's learning. And the other one, I've had this one for years, and you'll know it, Babula. is this one. It's a really good
Oh, yes,
book.
yes,
It's
yes,
a good
yes.
book for people who are starting and
Yes.
beginning and learning. I'm forever referring to it, and it's a good textbook.
It is, and it gives you all the basics, like it says
Yeah.
planets planets, signs, houses, and the basic aspects like oppositions and so on.
Yeah,
Foundational stuff. Yeah.
I know astrologers will have that, but most will. But for people like me who are learning and moving through it, I find it very helpful.
That's fantastic. And I, over the years, from time to time, I've actually run a one-day workshop on just medical astrology 101. So I'm not trained medically, but I've always been, all my life, I've been interested in natural health and so on and healing.
Yeah.
So I might do that again this year. I'm already kind of thinking about what workshops I might run this year. And just medical astrology 101, like Jane Ritter-Patrick, she has a lot of knowledge because from memory, she's also a trained naturopath or herbalist.
And a pharmacist.
And so she has real medical knowledge.
Yes.
And she's an astrologer. I actually went to a whole day workshop of her.
One.
Yep.
I'm just holding it up in case they didn't catch the name. Yep.
A wonderful woman. And I was lucky enough to see her do a workshop at another astrology conference in Melbourne again some years ago. She was fabulous. And I'd already had her book, so I was excited to go and see her live. It was great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, well, there you go, everyone.
It's great. Yeah.
Was there something else you wanted to say?
No, I was just saying what a great idea to hold up those books. That's terrific.
Yeah. Well, I've got another one. I've got a whole shelf of astrology books, which I've read from. Some of them I've read from cover to cover, and others which I was more drawn to. And I liked the one. I'll have it next time. It was of a more spiritual nature because I can't quite remember now, but it was very good too. So anyway, everyone, well, I hope you enjoyed everything that we talked about today. And do remember that if you enjoyed it, please like the episode, leave a comment. We love comments. We're getting a few, and that's really lovely. And please remember to subscribe and tap the bell to make sure you get a notification of when it's uploaded to the YouTube channel. So until next time, in another 2 weeks.
And Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes, Happy New Year. We should have started with that, I suppose.
I know.
Happy 20, because it will be New Year when they see
That's
this.
Right.
Maybe not. We'll see how the editor, how fast he works. Anyway, Happy New Year, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.